Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg, Evagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Weekly Collective Energy Share. Let me pull up the page. There we are. So let's see if we have some words this week. I don't know if we need to. I had a beautiful, awesome wordless meditation this morning. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, made me feel great.
There we are.
So, where do we want to start?
Well, do we want to bring forward what we did last week? I don't know.
What was last week?
No, the words were coming out of my mouth and I went, oh yeah, that would mean I'd have to remember.
Every week I'm like, I'm going to look before we get on, right? Last week we talked about yeah, I wrote nothing about that in my journal last week. So
well,
of course we tell the story, right? Not to tell the story, but we talk about the progress from last week to this week, because every week is like a year right now. So
I know. Yep.
Are you pulling it up?
Yep, I'm trying to.
Just the title would probably maybe give us the guidance.
Well, changes the way of being, but that was.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was it.
Wow. I thought that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, changing to a way of being instead of doing, like part 50, right?
Right.
And, well.
Yashmin's here.
Oh, good morning, Yashmin. I don't see her up on my screen, but that doesn't mean anything. So, yeah, so where did we go from there? Last week was a lot.
Right.
Because we just kept on getting pounded with stuff. So we tried the being, right? And then we got to see, I had such a big full weekend, and I know we had this call
right.
We talked about all this stuff. I'm trying to remember what we did. So ultimately what we got to a place of in discussion last week, because I did write that down on Friday, was it was reprogramming ourselves, because we walked through some doorway, I don't know, a couple months ago now, and it's like, all right, so we got to the place of being in a different place. So being in a different place is also being in the way we be here, right?
Right.
And then we were talking about reprogramming ourselves because there's so much, and we've talked about this in the past, but this is like a whole new level of having stuff in front of us and committing ourselves to being from a context that we have not yet remembered, right? So
right.
About the context thing.
Right.
And so part of that we had gotten last week had to do with the importance of maybe activating some dormant strands of DNA. And so, like, that we've had there that we haven't needed to use, that we've forgotten about.
Right. That just haven't been needed. Right.
And so I've just sort of set myself to go ahead and allow all those to activate now, so that we can to be able to retrain ourselves, right? To be, and within these new parameters of expansion from a new context or whatever, and to grow out of the old context of habits that we've had in the past, right? So that seems to be a big thing right now. Also adjusting and allowing. So we're calling it crystalline resonance, right? We're talking about the Merkaba. Remember we talked about that?
Right.
That's been coming up for the last, because the week before when we had share, we saw that, like, it was this whole thing that we had a group share, and we had seen all of our physical bodies were the chariots, well, the Merkaba, what many people consider the chariot of ascension, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what our bodies are, right? And it was like once they start to spin, that's like the activation of those DNA pieces that we have left dormant, right?
Right. Well, and we talked about how the body, mind, spirit creates that flat triangle, and that as you come into an understanding that there's more to it than just what you see here, it becomes the dimensional triangles that make up the Merkaba.
Right. Whatever.
Right.
Tomato.
Right.
Right. And so
it's taking that body, mind, spirit connection and expanding on it, taking it to that next level.
Right. Which is, it feels really good, except it's just a matter of us shifting that commitment of like being able to, because we fall back into the same ideas of, oh, I have to learn something this way. I have to learn it because I don't know it, instead of, oh, I already know it. I just have to activate it, or not activate that remembrance of knowing, right?
Right.
I just have to access that within myself. And this is like more prominent now than ever before. Also, even just releasing all the processes.
Right.
Oh, seriously,
Right.
yeah.
Even the process of learning, because you always, in the past, we've said, well, that knowledge is outside of me, so I have to seek it out, find it, and then assimilate it. Well, it's already here. We already know how to do all of this, so it's just a question of connecting and remembering into that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is just telling the mind to shh and listen in another way.
Right, because we're so used to just going, here's the thing, we're so used to thinking in linearity. Linearity is going out the window,
right?
Or has gone out the window,
or has, right?
We're just catching up to that remembrance. So what happens is this: we think, I'm going to do this, or I'm being called or feeling the pull to do this, but first I have to do this, this, and this. Linearity, right? Nope.
Right.
You're being called to do it, you commit to it, and it's just going to be there, right? It's going to be there in whatever way. And yes, it is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, or a lot uncomfortable for a little while, because it's like, okay, well, first I have to, it's like, even like, oh, it's time to do this. Oh, but first I have to feed the dogs, or I have to feed the cats, or I have to do this, or whatever. No, do this.
Right.
And this will all have to, like, it'll all figure itself out. And our mind says that's impossible, because if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Right.
If I don't direct it and tell somebody else to do it, who's going to do it?
Right.
So it was sort of like that a little bit for me this weekend, to just let go of this whole thing, because my birthday was yesterday, and I had said what I wanted to do, and this is what we're doing, and and I decided, and it was great. But then there was other stuff that everybody did, and every time I tried to like inject myself, right, it was like, no, just go over there, go do your thing. Good morning, Laurel. And so, but we sit there and we still think so much. So this is our biggest, I'm getting right now, oh, that was the biggest thing. The biggest thing is getting rid of our linearity, and thinking in linearity, and thinking in processes, because that's actually a process. When we say, oh no, first you have to do this. I mean, this even went down to Scott and Sierra making my cake for me Saturday, right? Like, and I was sitting at the kitchen table watching them do stuff, and I'm like, but you gotta, they're like, shut up, we're making your cake.
Right.
And it came out great. So they might not have done it in the same order, but it was fine. So, the thing is, and that was just a little thing, but I mean, I'm getting that these bigger things, because we that's how we delay ourselves. This is how we excuse ourselves from doing things, right? Oh, well, first I've got to do this, and this. I've got to clean the house. I've got to do the laundry. I've got, and we put that in there, and we're like, no, but this is important, because if I don't have clean laundry,
right,
how could I even go out in public, right?
Who says it has to be clean is relative.
Right, exactly. Clean is relative. Ask 5 people that, and you'll get 5 different answers. Ask a college student what clean is, and you'll get a much different answer.
That's exactly right.
I use that, right? So my daughter, who's home this weekend and doing a month's worth of laundry at once. So
Right.
yes, this is the last time she was home. So the the thing is, we don't realize those are those things in our minds that hold us up. Well, I've got to do this first.
Right. Well, we also limit ourselves, and like I was saying, the body, mind, spirit. It's like we think of it as just this body that we see right here, and this mind that I think with right here, and this spirit that I am in touch with right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more to it, and there's so much more depth that we don't acknowledge, which just holds us where we are.
Well, and it's because what we get distracted with, oh, the body, I have to make sure my body's this weight or this size. I have to do it this way, or else I don't feel good about myself because, culture tells me that I should look this way and I should be this way,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And yet the funny thing is, the more holistic and holographic we allow ourselves to be, and the more centered we become from the center, it's the more everything naturally balances itself out.
Right. Right.
Right? Because when we are deficient in something one way, that means we're deficient in something holographically, right?
Right.
That means that we are not allowing ourselves something holographically,
Right.
right?
And we can fill that deficiency on the primary level, but we still haven't taken it to that next level of what is the core, what is causing that deficiency
Right.
at a much higher level.
And so like one step to that is, okay, from an emotional level here, but that's still just here, right?
Exactly.
Going, okay, what if we adjusted everything instead and just said, I'm adjusting everything holographically that's causing the manifestation of this and anything related to it, right?
Right. Right.
Right. And then not waiting for an analytical answer, because then the mind wants to analyze, right? Because that's
And
the
control.
and control. And the mind goes, oh, well, this
And
must
judge.
even what we think is more advanced of saying things like, oh, well, you hurt your ankle, so it must be moving forward, right? Because then we've made that connection, right? Which is a step forward from where we've been, which is very microscopic, right? To very symptomatic, to much more, energetic, but that's still that flat body, mind, spirit thing, because now we're going into the hologram to say, okay, so that's one piece of the hologram, right? And so the mind right now, even me saying this, is going, what are you talking about? We got this down. We already got this.
Right.
But my understanding is, when we accept the holographic part of it and say, okay, so instead of analyzing it, let's just shift it so that whatever's causing that to manifest, like, it's all balanced, like harmonized, right? Or harmonically harmonized, so that the whole hologram is complete, right?
Right.
And then, but then what happens is, so like what the mind says is this. So when we say that, right, because there are things out of context of what we're used to seeing and looking at, right? So it's still a retraining of remembering. So the mind goes, but what if then my hand turns into a hook one day? Like something like that. Is like, so then do you freak out? What do you do? Right?
Right.
Or what if, I grow
and that goes back to the judgment of, what if I don't control this, what if something bad happens to me?
Well, bad, meaning what? I don't look like everybody else. I start, like, I sort of feel like the more now that we focus on this hologram, right? The hologram versus the flatness.
Right.
The relative flatness. It was funny, because it's funny that you say that, because there was a conversation we're having over the weekend, a group of us, and it was like this whole like debate about a chessboard, because somebody called a chessboard 2D, and then somebody said, no, a chessboard is 3D because it's a 3D game. You have a whatever, right? And then
I can't move up. You can
But you're
only move.
moving around. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. See, that's what happens. The mind goes, oh, so let's look, what do we define it as, right?
Right, right.
And then I was like, and then you have like the holographic one in like Star Wars, which I was mistaken. The 3D one was actually Star Trek. I thought it was Star
It was
Trek.
no, it's Star Trek for sure.
I got confused. Anyway, there was the hologram chess game in Star Wars, though, and that's what I was thinking of. So even just that, the mind, what do we do? Right away, the mind goes, nope, I'm going to analyze. This is what my definitions are. This is what my reference points are.
Right,
Therefore, that's what this is, right? Time to let go of that. And so
right,
that is, I think, one of our last steps, right, of really letting go of. And I know that that's something for me to, there's something that hit me yesterday, and that's something for me to look at within myself. Like there's a little thing of something, of fear, right, of stepping off the ledge to really commit to that next level. But I mean, that's, I think, what's ingrained in all of us. I think that's what the representative is of all of us, right?
right, right.
um yeah, yeah. And it
Well,
was,
and I think it's further a shift from a heart, I mean, a mind led existence to a heart led existence. Because if you allow that heart to assimilate that shift, it's totally different than if the mind goes, no, now I have to put this in a box. I have to understand this. I have to know the rules. I have to understand the limits of it. Whereas the heart is like, oh, I can accept this. I can accept this expansion.
right, right. It was funny because I sort of realized this. It was something I realized yesterday in a very, very 3D kind of way, because we went ziplining yesterday, right? So I get on the zip line, no problems, never, no hesitation, up in the trees. Like we did like 8 different zip lines, whatever. It was great. And it was like I've been doing it forever. Like it was like so natural. I mean, the worst part was like about 1 second the first time I stepped on the platform and looked down, and then I'm like, well, I'm hooked up, I'm going, right? And then I said, no problem. We get to the end, and then they have this thing they call like the free fall that you could do just for fun, right? And it's stepping off a 60-foot platform on a bungee, basically, to go down to,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right? I just couldn't get myself to do it.
Oh, really? I'm not sure I could either.
And I knew it was easy, because I knew that it actually, you only really free fell for about 10 feet, and then it just, not even 10 feet, maybe 6 feet, and then it grabs, and then you just lower slowly, the line. But I was just like, I got to I went up twice to the platform, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, and it was funny because I didn't say no, never. I just said not today. No,
Yeah.
not today. And I didn't feel bad about it, but I just took note of it, because I'm like, I'm thinking, it's funny. Of course, my family's looking at me like I'm crazy, because I'm like, okay, Mom, you do everything and never even think twice about it. And I was just like, yeah, just not today. And I just went down, and Brianna didn't do it either. But, and so the funny thing is this, if you looked at it, there were 7 of us in the group. And out of the 7, 4 didn't do it. Only 3 did. Only 3 actually stepped off the platform. Right. And ironically, one was my husband.
That is ironic.
Sierra was another one. And then there were 2 other, there's one other girl from the other group that was within our group that she went. So it was really interesting. And I was looking at that going, well, what was the hesitation? Because I literally felt like I hit a brick wall when I got there. Like, because I knew it was safe. I knew
Right.
I knew like I would just step off and be fine. But I'm there standing there 60 feet in the air going, nope, not today, not doing it today. And so that brick wall is what I was looking at, because what is the brick wall? Is some resistance, right?
Right.
I don't have a fear of heights. I don't have like, obviously, because I just went ziplining all day through the trees and everything, right?
Right.
And I'm like, in fact, I went through like a couple of the zip lines were as high, was, yeah, started out as high as the platform. So it was like no hesitation there, right? So it was just whatever that was. I'm like, okay, so what is that? What is it really the stepping off and saying, okay, I'm really ready to commit to non 3D
Right.
existence in a way,
Everything.
everything, right? Right. And so I feel like that's what it is for me. Like, so I went into meditation this morning and I was like, okay, that I'm ready to change. Let's just change.
Right. Right. Yeah, because it's trusting the unremembered. Because on some level we do know what that looks like, feels like, behaves like, but we have no consciousness in this embodiment to go, yeah, I'm up for that. We don't know. So it's that level of trust that, because it's probably, we probably believe it's a one-way trip,
Or
that
some,
once you let go you can't unlet go.
oh, that's probably part of it. Oh, I can feel something
Yeah, I
moving.
can feel that.
There's a part that cringed behind the heart there. I was like, oh, well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that tension, that internal tension, like, your voice gets a little bit higher.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Maybe that's, I feel that as something big for me is there's no backsies. Once you let go, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
and it's like, and it's bigger than that, but it's like, it's bigger than even that, but there's no words to describe what it is, right?
Right.
Because we already know there's no
Absolutely.
backsies. We already know that.
Right. Because I mean, it's like that, described as the disappearing staircase. Every step, it disappears behind you.
Which has been going on for ages now, like, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and so now what? Now where are we being put? So it's almost like I hear the laughter because I'm like, I always joke about, this is really funny. Yeah, I hear it. I always joke about how I've always kicked myself off the ledge. I've always kicked myself off the cliff, right?
Right.
And it was like yesterday, I just got to the next cliff and I was like, yeah,
Not
not
today.
today.
Not
And
today.
that's exactly what I said. Nope, not today. um, but that was the funny thing is I didn't have fear. I just was like, nope, not today. And I turned away, and it was like, hmm. But I felt that brick wall and it was like, okay, so is it not today? I'm not ready. Is it, I mean, is it a fear, but is it a different kind of fear? I think it might be that, or
Mhm. Well, yeah, it has nothing to do with the 3D-ness of it.
mm-mm. No, because it would make no sense, right?
Right.
Because I'm like, I just did zip lining all day, and yeah, okay, so you're not going to do this one little thing, which is really nothing, in comparison, right?
Right. Right.
You could go zooming across, big gorges and or whatever in the woods and stuff like that, but it was just like nothing. And it was like, yeah, and that's how we look at things, because we look at things in linear comparatives, right? Linear comparatives.
Right.
Well, I did this, so I should be able to do this, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, so I'm just trying to think of something that would seem to be logical, but not necessarily. Is like, okay, so I got my license, right? I got my license, so now I should be driving, right? That's just something when somebody does that, right? And so logically in today's world, we say, of course,
Right.
but not everybody does.
Right.
My grandmother had her license forever and she never drove basically her entire life. But it's like, okay, so, and there's other simple things. So people say, oh, well, you can write that off and these are our things, right? But it's like, okay, so, I've done this. There are so many things to compare. I just can't even think of them. Like, all right, done this, so I should be able to do this. And that's what we think linear in a linear way, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and so there's that precious that's hidden behind the veil again. The, like, okay, I'll do all this stuff, but when it hits
Right.
on this thing, that's where the brick wall is going to come up,
Right.
even if we're not conscious of what that is. And right now, that's what's, oh, so see, right now, that's what's invisible. Those are the invisible things because we don't have the context yet, right? So we feel the brick wall of something of going, oh, wait, no, that's not comfortable.
Right.
But we have, like, then the mind wants to kick into analysis paralysis, right? And be like, well, what's that
Yep.
about? Da, 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 right?
Right.
Instead of saying, okay, what if I just changed my perspective to say, okay, what if I walked off that platform and I walked right into another dimension? And maybe
Right.
in someplace, when I landed on the ground, I was going to be in a completely different world.
Everything was different.
Yep.
Right.
Because we do know this at some level, right? And so that's where maybe this is where we think we're allowing ourselves, but we're not really allowing ourselves.
Right.
And we're writing it off to, oh no, my guidance just said not today.
Right. Right. Right.
Because like I said, there was no like, oh no, I'm not doing that. It was just, oh, not today, And true, it might not have been time for whatever that was, right? And so that's the thing for us to look at is, okay, are we choosing, this is almost like another level of guidance altogether, is, are we choosing to not do something through guidance at this level, like this level,
Right.
or is it this level?
Yeah. Right.
Right. Now it's like we've upgraded even more, right? So guidance might be different. And then the mind says, oh my God, we just mastered this. How are we going to do it? Right.
Or I think I've mastered this.
Right. I believe I've mastered this. Right.
Right.
Um, Wow. So that just puts us in a completely new space. Because yeah. The words are gone now.
Well, and as we talk about, back in the beginning when you talked about going through the doorway, it's I think other doorways we've walked through, it's like everything's different. But I think this doorway is everything's moving with us. So everything's moving through the doorway. So everything's shifting, everything's evolving, everything's aligning differently. And it makes it harder to discern what guidance is. And that's because that's also shifting to that higher level.
Right. Right. Oh, right. Because what we talked about last week too was that I just remembered was that whole, so we have been talking about doing it differently, right? And in the past, we've gotten to different points and we have trashed it all. Trashed it, start over. Trashed it, start over, right? We've evolved. We hit these points and we're like, we're going to do this a different way. We're going to start over again. We're going to recreate the matrix again. And so we decided we're going to do this differently. We've been asking how we're going to do it differently this time, like, because we're doing it differently to move forward. And it's like into a different way altogether. And the mind would say, so it's sort of like when you take what we were talking about, it's like taking a file, like say a Word document on a computer and saying, okay, I'm going to edit this or upgrade this document. And instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to make a duplicate of the original and then pull away a bunch of stuff, add a bunch of stuff, form it into a different place with new technology and new words, new approaches. But the core of it
is the original document.
Right.
Right.
And that's when we saw that's sort of what we did in walking through this last doorway. And you would say, okay, the mind says, but isn't it easier just to start from scratch? But it's funny because
that's what we've always done.
And that's what we've always believed, right?
Right.
So maybe it's like, okay, because we've said, oh no, well, it's just putting Band-Aids on. It's like, no, it's not actually putting Band-Aids on it. It's looking at it and saying, what is really good and functional about this and what we want to achieve in the long run, right? In the whole, or
higher perspective.
In the completion, because it's really challenging to take it outside of a time, comparative.
And still use words.
Yeah, exactly. But so take the core of it, because we have evolved these different points to different places. So let's take the core of this, because, okay, instead of starting from because then it's a lot of repetition that might take us off in a different tangent, a tangential evolution, or we can take the core of what's really good, right? Even pull out the stuff that's been forgotten, right, and deactivated, and pull it back up. And from there, let's complete the project now, because now we've got a whole bunch of good stuff. We don't have to start from scratch again.
Right. And that, to me, that finally feels good.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas before it's like, no, I just, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. No, I don't want any of it.
Right. So if we look at it and say, okay, so here's the thing so it's going to sound bizarre to the mind, right? So say, okay, here we took a picture, and I'm almost seeing like a Sims game on the computer, right? It's like I take a picture of this. Instead of trees needing to be brown bark and green leaves, what if we made them like purple bark and cerulean leaves, right? I mean, just
or let the tree choose.
Or what if their leaves grew downward instead of upward, or their roots were at the top and their leaves are at the bottom? What if we just, yes. And what if we looked at the whole picture and said, okay, does this really work this way? Or should we move this piece? Should we recreate this piece in a completely different way? And that we think takes more effort, but it's a whole lot less effort than starting from scratch all over again.
Right.
But it's the commitment of saying, I will allow things to be completely different as we change them.
Right. Which, again, is that trust.
Yes.
And hearing the guidance from discerning the higher versus the still ego tainted guidance.
Well, or even the cleaner guidance from a different place, right?
It's hard to discern that
without judgment. Because it's like, oh, that's still egoic, hierarchy.
Right. Well, and clean versus dirty.
Yeah. But I mean, cleaner, in terms of,
I guess, wholeness.
It's almost like guidance in the new place that originates in the new place versus guidance that was still connected to the old place.
Right. Because, there still is going to be some ego attached to it, or else it would be just back into the wholeness period. And there would be no here and there.
Yeah. And honestly, maybe that whole experience was just so that I would have this to see today, because I'd have nothing else to.
Right. Not today, but maybe today. Not yesterday, but today.
Right. So, yeah. And what if we could just walk out our window from the second floor and just, float our way down?
Or turn around and come back in.
Or, there's so many things that the mind. So that's the thing is, okay, so the commitment is, and this is a whole different ball game of, okay, things look like they always did and they're not.
Right.
And so this is going to blow the minds of the scientific community, because things are just going to stop working the way they've always worked.
Right. And I think on some level we're seeing that start.
Yes, we've already seen that start. Or things are just starting to which is why I think there's such a growth in the field of quantum physics and stuff, because there's such a different level of fluidity.
Right.
In that.
Well, and I mean, if you think about a lot of the medications just don't work anymore.
Right. And they have more and more, because it's that panic of, oh no, well, we have to do something else, and we got to do something else, right? And it's like, well, what if we stop making medicines in the way that we've been making them, to say, really, we have to look at it in a more holographic perspective.
Right. And, maybe even just change the name of medicine to actually what it is a chemical.
Right. Chemical assistance.
Right.
Chemical.
I mean, vitamins are even that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just chemistry.
Yeah. Right. And and that's right. And that's because we were talking about the friend of ours who 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 trained her body to not need vitamins through
Right. She
frequency.
frequency. Right. Right.
But it was still an external frequency, right? So then the next step, now it's like, okay, now the next step is to know that you can access that frequency without having to play something.
Anything external. Right. Yeah. Which takes it to that next level.
Right.
Right.
And it truly is then the experiencing mastery within the embodiment.
Oh, wow. That mastery word.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's almost as if it's mastering the expanded dimensions of the body, mind, spirit
Yep.
within the hologram. Oh, wow. That feels.
Yeah, I know. I'm writing this down before I go
Please do, because I already can't say it again.
Oh, I was going to ask you too. Mastering the hologram.
The expanded dimensions of the body, mind, spirit within within the holographic wholeness. Laurel agrees.
All right, good. I caught it on pen. We're good.
Yeah, that really, really, really feel that. And that makes stepping out the second story window feel possible.
Well, not only possible, but free of judgment of, what, or expectation to say, okay, so
Right.
if it truly has been guided to do that, of course, I'm going to say that in the paper.
Well, because the
picture in my head of people just falling out.
there's so much that we limit ourselves based on expectations. I mean, we create our world through expectations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No doubt about it. We expect to wake up the same way as we did when we went to sleep.
Right. So what if you
It
woke
just
up?
reinstalls all the dysfunction that we hope to lose overnight.
Right. So what if we woke up with a completely different reality? Set of parameters, a different, not expectations, but just parameters. This is what I'm creating.
Oh, I just yawned.
Yep, I see that. I'm gonna here, look at me. All right. So that's where we are today. I think it's for us to, because all I've been guided to do all weekend in my meditations has been like opening my heart and allowing, right? And I'm like going, well, what does that mean? Nope, just open your heart and allow. Right.
Right.
And so open your heart and allow. Allow the undefined, allow the undefinable, right? Allow the beyond words, and allow all is possible outside of linearity. Let's let go of linearity and see what that takes, because more and more people I know, we're all getting there. Linear
Right.
thing has become very and more limited than it used to be. Let's just say that.
Right.
Or actually, no, we're just being aware of how limited it is in versus the hologram kind of thing. So allowing ourselves to see via that hologram, the holographic self, and to accept and trust what we are yet allowing ourselves to exist in again. And going back to what we had originally talked about was, also, and whatever that is, to align to that. So the DNA, now that's funny that the whole DNA thing and the holographic stuff is something that's come up, because I remember originally seeing, when I went through the whole Lemuria thing, I remember seeing in Lemuria, we could literally look at ourselves and see what the hologram, and I remember calling it the holographic DNA was. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. So it's like activating the holographic DNA, right? Not just our 3D DNA in the body, mind, spirit, but the holographic DNA that that little DNA is a part of, right?
Right.
Activating all of that again, allowing that with ease and whatever flow and fun, and to trust it, to know what that is, to just be able to be guided through that process in a very easy and fluid manner, and with that, allowing ourselves to exist in that holographic way again, using this as our base to move forward in the way that we agreed to do it or whatever, and free of definition expectation. Simple as that.
Oh yeah.
Just
I did that over the weekend.
I did it Saturday night when I washed my hair now.
Yeah. Yeah. This one is a big one.
Yeah. So that's, I think, it feels like where we start today. All right.
Yes,
You ready?
I am.
Okay.
Oh,
And for anybody listening, what we do that when we say we're ready, it's just you can just close your eyes and open your heart to receive, because we just connect outside of time and space to create that um, in wholeness. Let's go. All right. That one's going to be an all week thing for sure.
Right?
I saw a lot in there and it was like, wow. Talk about taking stuff out of linearity. It was just like, because then that's why we've been working on no judgments. And we've been working on
No
um,
expectations.
no expectations, because just because somebody's doing one thing doesn't mean they're ready to do another, or just because they're not doing one thing. I just saw so much right in there. It was just like, because that's what we put these whole strings of expectations on. And it's like it's like purity of consciousness. I don't even want to call it guidance anymore, because it's just your consciousness of
Right.
the whole situation of anything, the whole.
Right. And it's integrating that creation from the creative void with that just is the
Yeah.
perfection.
Well, and what I saw was, it was funny. It was like, oh, I was looking at the DNA strand in the beginning, and then there was this one little switch, and it flipped, and that's when I saw the holographic DNA. It was like, oh, that was the switch that turned off the access to that, and it was like, oh, and then once I started, I just floated off on like all these
Oh, I
different
know.
things, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
So, all right, so this week, everybody, stay attentive to expectations and
Judgment.
judgment, and look at maybe what I was being shown is what holds a lot of us back is like we have this side of us that's like, there's a part of us that's like, just, okay, I'm just ready to do this. But then there's the heavy sack of stuff that we're still carrying of expectations that we still allow us to anchor into the old clone of this
Right.
reality.
Right.
And so, like,
It
look at,
should look like this. It should feel like this.
right.
It should, yeah.
So, in looking at it differently, I mean, that's truly letting go of all the tethers and saying, okay, what really is pertinent for my existence here now,
Right.
and wholeness and that holographic stuff. I'm going to continue myself to focus on allowing that holographic DNA to activate
Right.
and be able to utilize that
And the integration of it
yes, integrate
into the remembering. Right.
very easily, so, and fluidly.
Right.
So there's a little tiny thing this week.
Yeah. Just a few things to keep in mind.
That's right. So on that, we'll see you next week. Thank you. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evagnoni.
signing off on this week's Ascended World. Have a good one.